They call it the gray zone. It's that hour between 4 and 5 in the morning where the world doesn't belong to the living, but it hasn't quite been claimed by the dead yet either. Most people are tucked under warm blankets, dreaming of their morning coffee. But for those of us on the interstate, the long haulers, the night shifters, and the desperate, the road becomes something else entirely. My name is Elena, and I used to love the night. I loved the solitude and the way the headlights carved a path through the void. But after what happened on Highway 42, I never drove after dark, ever again. I don't even like to close my eyes anymore, not since I learned how easily your mind can trick you. You see, the brain doesn't just imagine things when you're out there in the dark, it constructs them. It forces you to witness the impossible, and then it does the unthinkable. It makes you feel the phantom warmth of blood on your hands and the vibration of bones on your steering wheel. It's one thing to see a ghost. It's another to feel the way I did after a mistake I didn't even make. But the terrifying part isn't that I saw him. No, the terrifying part is that 6 months later, I found a photograph of the man who wasn't there. It started as a simple drive. My sister Clara had just called me from 3 states away. She was in labor, and I wasn't about to miss the birth of my first nephew. I threw a bag in my old sedan, grabbed a thermos of black coffee, and hit the road at midnight. The first 3 hours were fine. The radio kept me company. Old late-night talk shows, people calling in about ghosts and government secrets. It felt appropriate. But as I crossed the state line into the plains, the stations began to fade into static. Eventually, it was just me and the hum of the engine. The road was a straight, unrelenting ribbon of black. No turns, no hills, just the rhythmic thump of the tires on the road. There's a point where the road stops being a path and starts being a conveyor belt. You're just sitting there, frozen, as the asphalt feeds itself under your tires. It's hypnotic. It waits for the exact moment when your eyes go wide, but your brain goes dark. The moment where you're still awake enough to see the horror, but too far gone to stop it. I looked at the clock. It was 3:48 a.m. My eyes felt heavy, but not tired. A low freezing fog began to bleed out of the ditches, weaving across the road. I leaned forward, squinting. My coffee was cold. The heater was humming a low, dissonant chord. And then, almost out of nowhere, he appeared. He didn't walk out from the shoulder. He didn't cross the road. He was just there. A young man, maybe 24. He was wearing neon blue jogging shorts, the kind that looked like they belonged in the 90s. His skin was pale, almost luminous under my high beams. He was jogging right down the center of my lane, his back to me. I remember thinking, why is he so blue? Not just the shorts, his skin. It looked like he'd been submerged in ice water. I didn't have time to scream. At 75 miles an hour, there's no time to react. I slammed my foot on the brake, but I knew I was too late. I saw the muscles in his calves flex as he took one last step. Then came the sound. I could hear the metal of my hood buckle, the windshield spiderwebbed as his torso slammed into the glass. I felt the physical jolt, the heavy, sickening thud of 180 pounds meeting steel. I finally came to a stop in the tall grass off the shoulder. The engine had stalled. The silence that followed was deafening. "Oh God," I whispered. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't unbuckle my seatbelt. I stepped out into the cold night air. My legs were like jelly. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, the small beam cutting through the fog. I walked back towards the road, expecting to see the blue shorts, but I didn't. I walked for 10 minutes, then 20. I found my skid marks. I found the place where I had swerved, but the road was empty. There was nobody there, not even a shoe. I ran back to my car and had shone the light on my front bumper. The headlights were intact. The paint was smooth, and the glass on the windshield I had watched shatter inches from my nose was perfect. Not a single crack. I sat on my bumper and cried until the sun started over the horizon. When I finally reached a gas station, The old man behind the counter didn't even look up from his paper. "Saw the jogger, did ya?" he asked, with his voice raspy. I froze. "What?" "Highway hypnosis," he said. "The brain creates a jolt to wake you up. Usually it's a dog, sometimes even a hitchhiker. But for people on this stretch, it's always the jogger." I felt a wave of relief so intense I almost fainted. But if it was just my own mind playing tricks on me, why did I find a blue thread caught in my windshield wiper? Months had passed, and everything up until this point seemed to be fine. That is, until last week. I was at a local library looking through old newspapers for a work project. I found an article from 1994, a hit and run on Highway 42. A young man was involved, wearing those same neon blue shorts. The driver was never found, but the article mentioned one detail that made my blood turn to ice. The man wasn't killed instantly. The police believe he was struck by a car that never stopped, and he crawled into the tall grass, waiting for someone to help him. He waited in the dark until he succumbed to his injuries. Now, whenever I drive at night, I don't fear the jogger in the road. I fear the man who is still waiting in the grass. Last night, as I lay in my bed, I heard the sound of a hand hitting glass. I looked at my window. There was a smudge of fog that took the shape of the jogger. The odd thing is, I live on the 4th floor.